What would you do if someone randomly appeared in front of you and said that the world was going to end in 30 days? Chances are, you'd just shrug them off as the ramblings of a crazy person. After all, who'd believe someone they just met? The Day I Became a God takes that very scenario and applies a realistic approach to that, and it is simply amazing. I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting a whole lot coming into this anime. Its synopsis intrigued me, but I didn't think it'd be anything more than a series that makes me cry like a little bitch for a few hours, and then I'd be back to normal the next day. I mean, it's just a slice of life anime where a girl appears out of nowhere, calling herself a god, and saying that everyone's about to die, so it couldn't have that much of a lasting effect on me, could it? Oh lord. Past this point, there's not gonna be any spoiler warnings as I want to detail my full thoughts about this series, and to do that, I have to spoil a lot. The Day I Became a God certainly is a strange series. It's unlike anything I've ever seen from the people that made it. How it starts is what interests you, but it hooks you very quickly with its premise. If you stick with it until the end, chances are you'll be like me and really enjoy every bit of it. Like I said earlier, when you're being told something so outlandish, you're inclined to toss it aside. But what if that same person who told you such unbelievable things started predicting the future down to minute details? Your faith would be shaken, and you'd start questioning everything. That is how this anime starts, and this series sets in such a feeling of disbelief that not only affects the protagonist Yota, but also sticks with you throughout its runtime. One of the first things you notice in it is how our self-proclaimed god, Hina, gets a lot of details wrong, which is a thing that makes Yota waver between believing her words and trusting his gut. The entire first half of this anime consists of him questioning himself, but in some ways, he actually wants to believe her. This part at first might seem like it's aimless. A lot of its time is spent with the various characters of the series as they do things that don't seem to add much to its plot. It all feels very episodic in some ways, but then you notice something that's pretty subtle that people could easily cast aside if they weren't paying attention. This is where Yota does all he desires to do in this life, and while a few are selfish, most of them are selfless. From trying to get his love recognized to just having fun with everyone he loves. It's where you see that he's slowly believing Hina's earlier words. And you see that all these episodes are just him trying to make sure that everyone he cares about has no more regrets when the world ends. It's really comforting to see this as it happens, as you get to see an unspoken kindness get carried out while those around him are unaware of the possible danger. These episodes really reflect that there's a very strong chance of Hina's words being plausible. The final half of this anime is where the show really shines. While there was a lot of build up to it, I feel none of it was a waste. You get to know more about Hina during this part, and while there might have been some doubts placed in you, seeing what's really been going on fills you with worry, and maybe even a bit of dread. One of the best parts to come out of this is seeing Hina's mind misinterpret what she actually predicted. Throughout the entire show, we're being told that the world is going to end, only to find out that not the entire world is ending. It's only Hina's. It opened a very unique way to make an emotional impact for the series. The way it goes down is something that you just wouldn't predict, even if you enter this anime with the mindset of expecting the worst. The conflict that happens in this anime is really interesting to me. While the antagonists were introduced early on, they're not very prevalent in the early episodes, and that allows you to soak in as much happiness as you can before they butt their way in. As they appear more, you get to understand how they even tie into what's going on, because they seem a little out of place at first. It originally feels like they're trying to do something good for the world, but as you see them progress, you learn that what they're doing is really fucked up. It makes you feel disgusted that these people are going to such lengths to shorten the life of a young girl. One thing that I really enjoyed with the antagonists is how the anime handles showing that they're not particularly evil. They earnestly believed that they were keeping the world safe because all it would cost them was the life of a single girl. Even though they hurt Hina to a degree that is not forgivable, they try to atone for their transgressions toward our main characters, as their involvement brought the momentum of both of their lives to a halt. After the antagonists get to Hina, seeing her in the state that she's left in is absolutely heartbreaking. The tone of the anime itself changes pretty noticeably, but it's done in such a way that it isn't distracting to the viewer. I can understand how some people might be turned off by the direction that the anime takes at this point, but this leads into one of the best endings I've ever seen. The ending of this series is a struggle, and that's not a negative. While it weighs heavy on the viewer, watching our main characters get through it fills you with a sense of hope and joy. It goes completely against the feeling of dread that the series sets up for you in the early half. By the time that hope carries all the way through, you've hit the end of the anime. It's an unexpectedly happy ending. While this anime fills you with a lot of emotion, the saddest and most impactful part of it is watching the last few seconds of it count off. It was really painful seeing it end. I don't know why so many people had gripes about the climax of the series, because every single moment of it was a masterpiece. Maeda really outdid himself with the writing in this anime. Looking back at all the past works that he's had a hand in, you really notice a lot of improvement with his ability, especially when you compare it to the previous original animes, since those have gotten better with each subsequent one he worked on. Before this video ends, I wanted to talk about a couple of more things that I really enjoyed. A thing I loved about this anime as a whole is how there's this ever-present theme about fate. While this series might not be the first show to tackle this kind of theme, what they did with it is what I find so uniquely enjoyable. Inevitability is the main theme that this anime showcases when it comes to fate. Time and time again, it brings attention to the idea that stuff that is set in stone cannot and will not change. However, with that, it also brings the idea that there are smaller things that can change that will influence the inevitable to varying degrees. The biggest example of this is with Hina. She knows that her world is going to end, but she doesn't know how. All she ever sees is her existence disappearing, and assumed it was everything ending. Involving herself with Yota managed to change the outcome of that ending, but it never changed the fact that her normal life would end. It might not be that grandiose of a thematic style, but it's simple and to the point for what it is. Honestly, what I'm saying here about how this was handled wouldn't even do it justice. It's one of those things that you really have to experience with your own eyes and ears. I absolutely love the characters in the series. While the ones outside of Hina and Yota didn't get as much prevalence compared to them, I felt they didn't overstay their welcome, and they contributed a lot to the story. They never felt like they were underutilized either. In terms of Yota and Hina, I adore both of them. They work well together, and it was really nice seeing how Yota slowly warmed up to Hina as he fell out of love with Izanami. As the two most important characters in the show, I never felt that one outshined the other, and the anime didn't feel boring when one of the two wasn't in a scene. The Day I Became a God is something that I believe to be the best anime ever made by the people behind it. When I finished this show, I was left completely in awe from what I watched. This is probably the only anime I have ever seen that I would wholeheartedly call perfect through and through. I saw no flaws in anything when it comes to it. I don't even think I could find something to nitpick just to say one negative thing about it. Everything about this anime was just good to me. It's now something that I can't see another anime besting anytime soon. The only thing that would be coming close is the upcoming anime To Your Eternity. Even just sitting here now, I'm getting the urge to go experience it all over again. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts about this. We might not all agree on some things, but hearing what others loved about it will bring me a lot of joy. This anime deserves so much more, and I genuinely mean that. Also, I encourage you to join my Discord server if you want to talk to me or engage with my currently small community. We're always looking for more people to discuss things with, so if that interests you, there's a link to my server in the description.